All right. I thought today, it's Wednesday. I might as well wear my Savage Emoji shirt. Middle of the week, hump day. Let's try to get over it. All right. So I saw that. Yesterday I saw that Gabe was doing an AMA, or a couple of days before he did it.
Oscillations.
And so obviously I wanted to go and see what was going to be said, if anything, about Counter-Strike, right? And I didn't expect anything. I expected that obviously there would be questions on CSGO, since it's the second most played game that Valve currently works on. And my whole take on Valve has really shifted over the years. It has. There was a time when I was the guy going, Valve's really not that bad. Like, you really, what? They don't communicate that much, but they're trying, They just don't know how to, they don't really know how to do it. I made excuses. I was like the girlfriend or boyfriend or who's getting beat, and then but I'm still defending. I'm still defending my aggressor, I'm still like, it's like, well, Jimmy loves me, but he hits me because I do bad things, and he hits me because I'm toxic, right? That's like what the community does. That's what a lot of the community does when it comes to Counter-Strike and Valve. And I used to be one of those people, man. Up until maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, I used to be one of those dudes that every time Valve would come out, right, they'd fuck something up and they'd be like, oh man, guys, we're never gonna let that happen again. We're gonna have more transparency. I really did. And for years I was like that. To be fair, I did stop playing CSGO for like 2 years after I played it when it was in beta. When we were only playing, you had one map, you played Dust, and the game was horrible, but I tried to like it. I played it for like 8 months, and then I stopped because I was like, this thing is garbage. I don't think it'll ever get better. But then I came back to the game after about maybe a year and a half. Maybe it wasn't 2 years. And I was like, okay, they've definitely improved it a lot. The rank matchmaking was out. I was like, all right, And then I started getting back on board the Valve train a bit because obviously I was seeing improvements. And I don't want it to make it sound like CSGO is the worst game of all time, because it's not. It's a fun, competitive game that has a lot of problems, right? That has a lot of issues. So my problem with Valve isn't that, like, I don't think the game's broken beyond all repair. I don't think, I think it's still a really fun esport to watch. I think they've done a lot of good things with CSGO. I think they've totally reinvented the spectator experience for FPSs, especially obviously Counter-Strike. I think they're the standard as far as much information you're able to see on screen. They've done a lot of good things, man. I think the Molly, everyone hated the Molly. I think the Molly's a great idea for competitive play. There's a lot of things. So you might go, why am I upset? Why do I have any reason to be upset after looking at the Gabe AMA, right? My problem isn't so much with CS:GO itself. There's a lot of things they've also done that are brain dead, right? My whole problem with Valve, and this is something that's never going to change, and clearly, again, Gabe doubled down on this in the AMA, but things that aren't going to change, right, include communication. And I've all been given up on that. What are my frustrations with Valve after everything I've said? Yes, there's lots of bonehead things. There's sprays that are limited use, which I think is one of the most tone-deaf, greedy money schemes that Valve has ever pulled. And they've pulled some things in the past, but this for a lot of people, that was like a step too far. Some people actually stopped playing the game over the spray thing, just because it's something that was always free and available in the past, and then to make it again, you don't have to buy sprays. I understand, you get drops, all that stuff. But the fact that they took something like a spray and they monetized it, and then not only monetized it, but they made it limited use. I didn't really rant on this all that much, but we did talk about it a bit. It's just, again, totally tone deaf, and it's what Valve does. You know what Valve does best? Valve's slogan should be tone deaf. And it's not, I don't think it's because they don't listen to the community or they don't engage. I'm sure that they're browsing Reddit just like every other. The 20 to 30 people that work on CSGO, I'm sure some of them look at it. But the thing is, Valve is accountable to nobody. And we know that, right? Especially when it comes to Counter-Strike. There is zero accountability, right? They do whatever they want, and they can do whatever they want because they know that people are going to still play the game ultimately. So the boycotts or whatever, like we really don't have any power, right? We can only just hope that our voices get heard and hope that things get changed. But again, we have no say on the time frame, and there's no transparency. So that obviously that's where I'm starting off with the frustration with Valve. Okay, and especially when it comes to the cheating stuff, a situation where you have prime matchmaking, where basically you have to get to a certain level. I think it's level 20, right? You grind to level 20. You have to put in your phone number. And again, granted, yes, it does help with the cheater situation. I see a lot less cheaters in prime, so that's good. But, you know, Valve anti-cheat and all that kind of stuff, right? Cheating is so rampant if you don't have Prime. I don't know what kind of experience, like, I don't know how it can be so bad in your game that I would tell people don't even, if you don't have Prime, don't play Ranked. Absolutely don't play Ranked because you'll quit the game. You won't even play it. So, anyway, all that to say, why did this AMA trigger me so much? It triggered me so much because if you actually read what Gabe said, again, he typed a few paragraphs. He said absolutely nothing. He said absolutely nothing, which is not shocking. But people are acting like because Gabe comes on and does his AMA once a year and maybe like makes mention of CSGO, that it's like the heavens have lifted up, that you know it's a bright new day for Counter-Strike. That, you know, and if you actually look at the content of what he said nothing. In fact, he actually said some stuff that should concern us. Okay, the first thing is how many people are now working on CSGO? He says 20 to 30, same as always. And you might go, "Oh, what's the big deal, right? 20 to 30. That seems like a pretty decent sized team for a game that makes millions and millions and millions of dollars every day." And then you go 20 to 30 people working on one of the biggest esports games. I mean, again, I'm not saying that you have to have a huge development team, but for stuff like this, when we talk about being more transparent or having somebody that communicates with the community, even if you're not going to do what we want, obviously not everything, the community is not going to build the game out, but to at least feel like we're heard. So at least the very least, we can feel like, oh man, I mean, somebody's listening. And they have, again, it's not that they never do, it's that they do it very rarely, okay? 20 to 30 is what he's claiming is working on CSGO. Okay. What does it feel like? I don't know. It feels like 8 people are working on this game. 5. 4 on a good day. They shipped one operation in an entire year. I know that they're working on stuff behind the scenes, all this kind of stuff, right? But you do not get the fucking benefit of the doubt, or you do not get to hold off on people being upset when you do very little to communicate what you're working on. And this is my problem. People will go, and the white knights in the comments will be like, well, obviously, they're not just working on operations. They're working on other things, bug fixes, all that kind of stuff, right? Then fucking tell us. Give us, even if you gave us an itemized list of things that you're working on. We're definitely not going to get it's going to be to be determined. I understand we're not going to get it exactly when. But there is no central focus of communication from Valve from anybody. Not a single person. And again, if this game was some fucking game run by a studio that has 2 people or 1 guy or an indie developer, and yeah, sure, it's getting a lot of traction and more and more people are playing it, and it's new around the block, this might be acceptable. But this isn't. This is a multi-million dollar huge esport with millions of dollars in skins being bought every single day. And you're going to tell me that simply because Valve's policy, and now I'm going to get why it's real mad. Now I'm going to get why I'm real upset. Because there were some good questions asked in this AMA, and this is what really set me off, because I knew that this is never going to change. Is there a way to assign a community representative from Valve to CSGO? Simple question. A very valid question. Because not only would it help Valve, it would help us. I think it would mostly help Valve, though. But again, we have to keep coming back. With this premise, we have to understand that Valve doesn't care about what the opinion of them is. And again, you can say, well, there's a certain level of like, wow, they really don't give a fuck. Well, they don't have to. And so I understand that. But again, you're doing an AMA. You're supposed to be, you want to be transparent. You're hoping to get some answers. So these are going to be fair fucking questions. Someone who would communicate with the community frequently to keep the peace between the devs and the community. All right. I think it's a great question. I think it was phrased perfectly fine. This is his answer. And I want you to be upset from this answer. If you're not upset from this answer, obviously if you don't play CSGO, you don't give a shit. But I'm saying if you play this game and at all care about like how it's developed over the years, or you like watching it competitively, or whatever else, if you have any stake in this game, whether it's wanting to play against less cheaters or whatever else, this is his answer. And this, I mean, it's beyond arrogance. It's just like, fuck you. We haven't considered community managers. Not that we haven't, we thought about it and we decided, like, no, it's probably not the best. We haven't considered. They haven't even given it a throwaway thought. We haven't considered community managers because in general, and then listen to this shit, because in general, we prefer to communicate by shipping game updates. Listen to that fucking sentence in 2017. We haven't considered community managers because in general, we prefer to communicate by shipping game updates. Are you fucking kidding me? If that is not the biggest fuck you, we will do whatever we want and I don't give a fuck. Like if you come away hopeful from that AMA about anything after reading that sentence, you're just trying to drink the Valve Kool-Aid and feel better. I tried for a really long time. But this is from the man himself. This is from the big wig up top. This is from Gabe. You know, the Jesus of the internet for gamers. He hasn't even considered community managers. Because they do, and again, I'm not saying I don't understand why Valve is like this. They don't have to be accountable to everybody. And I will read the rest of his sentence. I'll read the rest of his sentence to quantify what he said. I won't totally quote him out of context, but still, it's a bunch of BS. And exactly, it's what you guys are saying in chat. What are we supposed to take away from? What are we supposed to take away from the R8 update? That they fucking hate us? I mean, if that's how we want to communicate. We try to avoid disrupting conversations happening in the community. Okay, they don't want to wade in, which is why we tend to be quiet a lot of the time. Okay. But we do weigh in when we have useful information to help these conversations along. Okay. So again, sure, I'll read it to quantify, but it's basically we watch, but we don't feel like we need to be accountable or say anything. And to be fair, there are very limited times where they'll come in and maybe a dev will come in and talk a little bit about a certain issue, but it's very few and far between, right? I mean, their general policy is we don't interact with the community at all unless, I mean, he just said it. He said what their policy is. They communicate by shipping game updates. All right, what else? What else in this AMA should we get excited about? Can you give us insight as to what the roadmap looks like for Counter-Strike, Global Offensive, and the series in general? Are there any significant goals Valve is working on towards for the future of the game and the community? I just realized I'm in the Battlefield section while I ran about Counter-Strike. Let me just change that real quick. I promise we'll play Battlefield after this. Trust me, we'll play Battlefield after this. Trust. All right, so fair question. And here we go for the roadmap. As far as the roadmap is concerned, our priorities are for 2017 are to replace the UI with Panorama, which I am going to try to glean a few bright spots. Basically, this UI is much lighter weight than the current UI and could help with performance increases. So that's, okay. I'll take that. To make CSGO available in more territories where a lot of Counter-Strike fans don't have easy access to it, like China, so they're trying to get in the China market, and AntiCheat. Okay, AntiCheat. Let's talk about AntiCheat, right? Let's talk about AntiCheat a little bit. Because these are all things that they're saying that are going to happen in 2017. And I hope, I mean, I would love, I don't know what they mean by anti-cheat. Is just working on VAC and or if we're going to get something like opt-in to a more invasive ESEA like client for it. So, in that one, again, but these are all, again, I know he's not going to get into super specifics or timelines, but these are super vague things. Like, it's, okay, these are the things that they're working on. He also said, of course, we're also planning on continuing to ship bug fixes and new features throughout this year, as in the past. Okay, so it's kind of like just a general non-answer, but you know, it doesn't trigger me as much as the previous, but I expect that. Can you tell us more about the frequency of future content updates, especially operations? Because we had one a whole operation the last year. We plan to continue updating every week or two, so tweaking the game. As for operations, there's no set schedule. We weigh that work relative to other work we could choose to focus on, and other recent works seem better for the product. For example, at the end of 2016, we chose to focus on shipping Inferno, which, all right, I can be unbiased. That decision, I like the new Inferno a lot. I thought that was good, so I like that. Improving spatial audio via HTRF, which I agree. I think HTRF is good. Joinable public lobbies, 3 good changes, and some long-term work that hasn't shipped yet. And then, so the long-term work that hasn't shipped yet. You know, everybody's making jokes. Everybody's assuming this is StatTrak glove skins. You know, could be 128 tick servers. We know that's never going to happen in matchmaking. But again, just some very vague answers, as Gabe does in his AMAs. I mean, again, I'm not asking him to dial it in and tell us, you know, there's just no commitment, and that's what Valve does, right? They're not going to commit to anything. They're not going to say anything is coming out at this time. So all of those things sound good, but I have to go with how Valve has treated us in the past, right? And the way that Valve has treated us in the past is you have to expect the worst. Actually, I was going to say you have to expect nothing. And then if something good happens, you're surprised. But actually, for the most part, when it comes to CSGO, especially after stuff like the R8 and the sprays, when it comes to CSGO, you should expect the worst, and if it's not the worst, you can be happy. But in that way, you're never disappointed. And that's really, and it sucks because there's such opportunity. This game is so beloved by so many people. And I think what's really triggering me about this AMA is obviously the people that feel like this is what they've been waiting for. They've been waiting Gabe to come down and give us some words, right? Give us some hope. And I mean, obviously, it serves its purpose for that. Sounds like your sex life. I know that one. I know that feeling about Mamba. So all I would say is, like, I don't want people to be totally jaded about the game, because I mean, I still have fun playing Counter-Strike. I do, I really do, and I love the franchise and I love the series, and there's a lot of good things that have happened. But I would just say, as a cautionary tale, coming from somebody that has been burned multiple times, and other people in this chat, and lots of people that play this game that know there's so many issues and so many problems. If a basic thing like community representation, right, assign a community representative, or even have somebody from the Valve side who's just going to say, hey guys, this is the list of stuff we're working on. If even that is if even that is not even considered by Gabe and the people that work on CSGO, it just doesn't give me any hope. And we can point to a million examples of Valve fucking something up and then coming back and saying we're never going to do that again, and then doing it. I mean, he just basically, when the R8 thing happened, they said that we're going to be way more communicative before we send out huge updates like this. Well, they haven't been. They ship the update, they communicate in the game updates, and that's what they do, and that's the policy. So we've heard it from him himself. And it's just frustrating. That's all. It's just frustrating. I know that, like, people are like, why do you keep talking about this? Like, you're just spinning your wheels. And I think the reason that it's so frustrating, and that obviously for the most part, if this AMA hadn't happened, I wouldn't be ranting about this. But it's just like, if you're on the teat of Valve, if you're still sucking that juice from Gabe's nipple, I'm sorry, that milk, you're drinking that milk flavored Valve Kool-Aid from Gabe's left nip, I want to really recommend that you stop. And once you stop, once you're able to remove yourself, once you're able to wake yourself up like Keanu Reeves did in The Matrix, once you take that pill, I think your outlook on CSGO will be better. Honestly, the most fun that I've ever had is when I stopped caring and was pleasantly surprised if there was a positive update. But I really do think your outlook on the game affects how, like, much enjoyment you get out of it. I really do. Because playing the game and being super invested in it but also being like, yeah, Valve won't do me wrong. You know what I mean? Like, or getting super frustrated, like I can't do anything about it. So that's all I really want to say. And if you just read the rest of the AMA, it's just a bunch of, obviously it's a bunch of non-answers slash stuff that we already knew. But I think, Baza, you raised a great point about what happens when Valve is basically a PC community monopoly, and this is the kind of stuff that happens. We're the peasants. Yes, we're giving them our money. I mean, we're giving them our money. I do. So you would want to say, like, there should be a certain level of accountability, but there's not. There's really not. And when the head of Valve says stuff like, we haven't even considered community managers, that's it. That's the end of the story. And we can't hope for more transparency or anything else from Valve. We will just continue to play the game, see the updates that come out, expect the worst, and hope that it won't be that bad. And if there's some good things sprinkled in, we can be happy. But that's it. That's all I wanted to say. So check out the AMA if you want to yourself. There's some good summaries on the subreddit about it. And yeah, I don't know. Any other thoughts in chat about what you read? Like, did anybody else get as triggered as I did reading the AMA and feeling like I didn't go in expecting any answers, but I was really disappointed by the community manager question, because I think secretly, after all of the bad press that the devs for CSGO have gotten, I mean, we could point to a million examples. We could point to when matchmaking was broken for an entire weekend, and somebody, Matt Wood, who doesn't even work on CSGO anymore, had to tweet that they are working on fixing it. Not a single tweet from CSGO dev. 30 people are working on this fucking game, and we don't get a tweet about one of the most important aspects of your game, the matchmaking portion that was broken for everybody, pretty much, in different levels for 2 days, and we don't get a single. We don't even get, hey, we're working on it. That is a total taking for granted, and fuck you to the people that pay money to play your games. You can't look at it as any other way. So, God, I'm getting triggered again thinking about it. And again, it's just mind-boggling, because this is not some indie little game. This is a game that makes so much money for Valve. And so much money for other industries, for fucking team organizations, for TBS, for DreamHack, for all these other ones where people pay tickets to go watch this game played at a high level. It's just it's like this on top of everything else going on. It's just like, it feels like so much squandered opportunity. Like, it's not that CS hasn't really evolved and gotten way bigger than it has ever been in the past. It definitely has. But there's so much more that could be done if there was just a little bit more transparency, or at least communication from the community to Valve, vice versa. I would even settle for just somebody from Valve saying, hey, man, a weekly or monthly update, like, these are the things we're hoping to ship soon. So that's it. That's all I wanted to say. But if any of you go look at the Valve, I have seen the Valve Company handbook. That's true, Lurid. Asking why things aren't more fucked up than they already are. Yeah, it's just it's more. It's not even a rant against Valve. It's just a rant against. It's basically, it's not even a rant. It's re-solidifying that in life, in general, if you never get your hopes up, you can never be let down. And that may sound super depressing, but when it comes to CSGO, that's kind of the angle that I have to frame it. And I don't think if you play, and again, I have a certain relationship with CSGO where I've just been playing this game for so long, from 1.6 and before to Source to Go. I've seen the ups and downs. I was there. I was playing Source when everybody was still playing 1.6. It was like, Source is the worst game of all time. And Source wasn't great. And Source did improve a bit, but it was probably the worst iteration of Counter-Strike ever made. But it's fun. So I know my investment is a lot more than a lot of other people. Like, I have, like, this was my game I played through high school. So, like, I know I have greater investment in it, but it's just disappointing. It's just disappointing, and I know that there could be a lot more done if, like you said, if Valve changed. Alex said Valve's never going to change, and I know that, but this just, again, this AMA once a year always solidifies it, that, like, no matter what happens, no matter how many things that you go, like, if they just had somebody to be there. like meat shields are valuable. They really are valuable. Obviously, it's a thankless job, but to have somebody that people can feel like that, even if the concerns are getting taken, crumpled into a fucking ball and thrown into the trash, that outlet is important for the community and for other people to feel like they're being heard, even if nothing is ever done. And you can truly do yourself a service. It doesn't solve every problem. There will always be people on extremes on both ends, right? Hating the game or loving the game. But you will never convince me that not having some kind of community representation or some kind of person that, even if it's a figurehead position, doesn't help the relationship. It does. It really does. And I'm not saying that I want a kowtowing person who's just going to be like, oh, community, please, like, we're trying to do this. Like, no, it doesn't. It just, I don't need time. I don't need timelines. I just want a little bit of communication. That's it. I'm not asking for a lot. But again, we know not to expect it now, for sure.